All righty. Are we all back?
Terry's still, oh, he's there.
There he is.
Just replacing ice packs.
Oh, boy. Is Pam back, Preston?
Yes, she's right here.
Great. So I'm going to get started again. We've just completed, for everybody in the public who's just gotten back on, or just gotten on for the first time, we just completed an executive session for discussion of the personnel matter concerning the town manager's annual performance evaluation, just so you know. And now we're ready to continue with the regular meeting. But before we do that, we need to swear in our newest member, Angela Forelli. And Pam, I'll hand it off to you for that.
Hi, Angela. I'm going to administer your oath of office. So I need you to raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Okay.
I state your name.
I, Angela Forelli,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and of the state of Colorado,
and faithfully perform
and faithfully perform
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of town councilor,
of town councilor,
upon which
upon which
I'm about to enter.
I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Welcome aboard, Angela.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We're happy to have you.
I'm excited.
Yay. Okay, so that brings us to the next things on the initial part of our agenda, which the first one is, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Nothing from staff, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody on council have anything additional?
Oh,
Nope. Okay. That brings us to the adoption of the consent calendar. There are 8 items on here, a number of minutes from various meetings, registered demands, annual designation of the town hall bulletin board as the official posting place, request for a water leak adjustment, and renewal of a liquor license for San Juan Liquors. Are there any items on there that anyone wants to pull off? And if not, does someone might want to make a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
second,
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Eric. Roll call vote, please.
Councilors Forelli,
I,
Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Schuyler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
aye.
All right, passes unanimously. Thanks, everybody. That brings us to the public comments portion of our agenda. This is established time for anyone to address council regarding something that's not otherwise on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person, but we'll give you enough time to state whatever concerns you may have. Anybody have anything on that criteria? If you do, raise your hand or attempt to unmute yourself. All right, seeing none, I'm going to move on. That takes us to public hearings. We have one public hearing tonight. Item number 9, adoption of ordinance amending the official zoning map by rezoning a portion of replat of blocks 2, 8, and Alley A of the River Park Ridgway Business Filing, Ridgway Business Park Filing 1, Lot 4R, Block 2, from I-1 to I-2. That's the I-1 zone to the I-2 zone, and a portion of Lot 2, Block 8, from I-2 to I-1. This is something that was introduced last month, and now we're having a public hearing on the actual adoption of this ordinance. And just so you know, public hearings have to be fairly formal in the state of Colorado. I'll have the town planner lead us through this and explain it. And then I'll open up the floor for public comments. Anyone from the public who wants to comment on this question or against or otherwise. And then when we're done with that, I'll close the public hearing and we'll deliberate and decide which way we want to go on. So take it away, Shay.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. So this is, as the mayor said, the second reading and the opportunity for adoption of this ordinance. It's fairly simple and fairly minimal. There was a replat of this property up here, which is on North Cora, and then Railroad Street is up here. And this property up here was kind of divided into a couple of different sections, and the alley was continued all the way through. So there were these two little triangles that changed kind of properties, this little triangle and that little triangle. And what the ordinance is in front of you tonight is to just rezone the zoning line for a lighter industrial district for the I-1 and the I-2 district is right along this line. So it's just being sure that our property line here, our new property line aligns with our zoning, so we don't have little triangles or little portions of property zoned differently than the rest of the property. So that is it, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thanks, Shay. Anyone on council have any questions for Shay? On this, it is pretty straightforward, kind of house cleaning. Seeing and hearing none, I will open up the public hearing. Anybody in the audience have any comments, questions? I kind of doubt there will be any on something like this. Give it another minute. Okay, I'm seeing none, so I will close the public hearing and I will bring it back up to council to deliberate. Again, they're pretty straightforward house cleaning matters, so I don't know that it needs a lot of discussion, but if anybody has any question. Is that person on iPad 2? Is that do you want to? No, there we go, thanks. If no one has any comments or questions about this, somebody want to make a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance 01-2021, amending the official zoning map by rezoning a portion of replat of blocks 2, 8, and Alley A of the River Park Ridgway Business Park Filing 1, Lot 4R, Block 2 from I-1 Light Industrial 1 to I-2 Light Industrial 2, and a portion of Lot 2 Block 8 from I-2 Light Industrial 2 to L1 Light Industrial 1.
Second.
I think that was Terry that made the second. Thanks, Russ, for making the motion. Any other discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Council members Farrelly,
Aye.
Brambley,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Schuyler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Great, passes unanimously. Thank you.
That was a long motion for a really simple thing.
It's good to get these little messy things taken care of. So
It is.
thanks, everybody. That takes us on to policy matters. First one up is item number 10, release of the subdivision improvements agreement for replat of blocks 2, 8, and Alley A of the River Park Ridgway Business Park Filing 1. This is the same property we were just talking about. So Shay, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm just sharing the staff report that is part of the packet on the screen. As you guys may recall, in order to create the final plat of those new lots that we created, we did a subdivision improvements agreement. So our subdivision regulations allow for a final plat, but these subdivision improvements agreements say, hey, we'll allow you to do a final plat, which makes it so you can sell your lots or you can build on them. But we're going to do this agreement so that we're sure to finish everything that we've agreed upon as part of the subdivision. And we create and record an agreement. This one looks just like this, that kind of has these items that need to be completed and completion dates. And then the, in this case, the owner of the property submitted a bond, a $5,000 in the amount of $5,000 to the town, so that if they weren't completed in a appropriate time, that we would take care of that and use those funds to do that. So in this case, the improvements and all the terms of the agreement have been met. There are a few little things to note. Well, two things. The final as-built document was just received, I think it was earlier this week. It's all a blur. Anyway, it was recently, and that is still in the town engineer's hands to finalize review on, but she has had an opportunity to review it before, so I'm hopeful that that is clean and almost good to go, but we'll want her final approval before we sign off on this release of the subdivision improvements agreement. And then we'll just be sure to collect any invoices or payment on any invoices from the town engineer and town attorney for all the services provided as part of this application. So the recommendation from town staff is just that, release this, but with a couple conditions there that are noted in the staff report. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jay. Would this be the appropriate time to have Joanne weigh in and give her 2 cents on this?
If she is ready, I've been sending a lot of stuff her way lately. So it is totally fair that she may not be ready at this meeting to do it. Let me see if I can.
She's on here. So Joanne, have you had time to review this and give us your take?
I have not. I will try to get to it before the end of the week, but
That's
we
okay.
looked at the first set and we gave them comments, so hopefully they're close.
Okay, yeah, no worries, just checking. And so as Shay said, we'll be looking for a conditional motion, conditional on final review stuff. So anybody else have any comments or questions for Shay on this, or anybody in the audience have any questions?
And I think Mayor Scott Strand is on, as well as the owner's representative, in case he wants to mention something. I'm not sure.
Okay. Scott, feel free to let us know if you want to weigh in, but you don't have to.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
No, I think we're close. We'll see how what Joanne has to say on that, and we can provide the final documents once that's been approved. Looks good.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So if there aren't any other comments or questions from council, is somebody prepared to make a motion?
I move to release the subdivision improvements agreement for replat of blocks 2, 8, and Alley A of the River Park Ridgway Business Park Filing 1, recorded in Ouray County Records at reception number 226970 on November 12, 2020. As terms of the agreement have been met with the conditions that the final as-built documents are approved by the town engineer, then submitted to town hall as required, and that final invoices are paid before the release is finalized.
Second.
I think Eric beat you to the punch there. Thanks, Russ. Motion made by Russ, seconded by Eric. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Farrelly,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Schuyler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Great, passes unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to item number 11, review and action on revocable permit application for use of town property. This one has Preston's name on it, so take it away, Preston.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So before you is an encroachment permit application. It's been submitted by Cheryl and Kevin O'Brien. They live at 1015 Clinton Street. Actually, I think they're on the call. Yeah, Kevin and Cheryl.
Yep, they're on here.
They're requesting to use a portion of undeveloped North Elizabeth Street for what seems to be designated parking spaces associated with a home occupation business there at 1015 Clinton Street. And hopefully you all have had a chance to, bless you, had a chance to go through the memo. In the analysis section, you can tell that staff is recommending denial of the application for several reasons. First being that staff is interpreting the request as exclusive use of this portion of the town right of way, again, undeveloped section of right of way for their home occupation. The town code states that it's unlawful for any person to use public property or rights of way for private purposes, except as permitted by ordinance, franchise, public right, lease, council permits, or otherwise in accordance with law. It's the council permit piece that's the impetus for this request and kind of why we're here, but there's really no precedent for this. And then secondly, staff is of the opinion that requiring designated parking on town right of way in order to operate their home occupation may actually no longer qualify them as a home occupation, as business activity would be taking place outside of the enclosed structure. So an overview there, a lot of that in the memo, but again, that's staff's recommendation, and happy to answer any questions. And again, do want to recognize that Cheryl and Kevin look to be on the call.
Okay, thanks, Preston. Let me just first ask if anyone on council has any questions for staff on this. And if not, then I'll give Kevin and Cheryl an opportunity to give us their take. Terry?
Yeah, is this the only option they have to achieve this objective? Is there some other mechanism? Was this the only go-to method that we could facilitate?
If I could weigh in, I think the issue at hand here is that Elizabeth Street between Clinton and Charles is undeveloped. Like a lot of platted streets in town or sections of our streets, it's been platted, but it has not been developed. So if it were developed, it would be like any other one of our town streets where people can park on the edge of the right of way, as many, if not all of us do from time to time. So I think that's really to me, that's the crux of the question here, is that maybe rather than go through this procedure of actually approving a request for an encroachment permit that would be presumably permanent, that we actually create a town policy that addresses the use of public rights of way that are undeveloped. I think that's the logical way to try and deal with this. But that's my 2 cents. Anyone might have a different opinion, but that would be my response to your question, Terry.
Are there any plans to develop it? That section of street?
No. And like I say, there are tons and tons of sections of our streets around town that have been platted since the 1800s and have never been developed. And usually what happens is they get developed as someone, in most cases, they're in places where there's very little development yet. And so developing them usually happens when somebody wants to develop and build a house on an undeveloped street that they need access to. And that usually implies that the developer build the street with our help, but that they bear the majority of the cost, because we don't have obviously unlimited funds to develop streets that aren't otherwise developed yet. Like Joanne could tell us, but my guess is that even just to develop that at the gravel street is several $100,000 to do it to our specs, like we would expect anyone else to do.
I have a question for staff. When we talk about home occupations, are we saying that anywhere in town we really shouldn't have people coming and going from home occupations? Since that would be, if we're considering that to be taking place off or outside of the enclosed structures, I guess I'm a little confused because, you know, somebody else has a home occupation where people would park on a different street. Is that something we wouldn't consider a home occupation?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I could probably use Bo's assistance in weighing in, and maybe Shay's too. But just for everyone in attendance, the code states no business activity in specific to the home occupation section of the code. No business activity or storage of property involved in the business may take place outside of enclosed structures except for horticultural activities. So, that's, Beth, you do raise a good question. It's a little broad when you're talking about coming and going. I mean, that may be an element to every home or some other home occupations as well. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, I guess my question is, if we assume that in other locations where there is a street constructed, people can just park on the street, then, that the home occupation piece wouldn't seem to be a factor. I mean, the private use of public property is still a factor. But I'm just trying to kind of garner why the existence of, if the existence of needing parking really does make it not a home occupation. I mean, Eric's had his hand up, but I mean, if that's really the case and it's really just like parking for friends, why would they not be able to park on the front side of the O'Brien's property and the O'Brien's could provide walkway through their property? Because that street is constructed. So anyway, Eric, what were you gonna?
Well, I think the intent of the home occupation ordinance was that, this would not be anything with huge amounts of traffic involved in it. It would be, small craft related businesses. The good example is at one point in time, the woman that lived across the street actually had a little hair salon back in the garage, and people would come park on the street, get their haircut, leave. So I think that's just designed for, low impact kind of business. And it's just the town right away thing is what gets in the way here.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Preston and staff's comments about the the parking, like that this encroachment permit is for specifically for parking for his business, for their business, that sort of creates by its own very nature a potential catch-22, because for instance, I had a stained glass business out of my shop for many years, and of course people would pull up and park next to my shop and come in and talk about a project, but that parking place none of the parking next to my shop was designated for my business. So if it had been, that would be a whole different thing. That's my interpretation of what staff's saying. I could be wrong.
Well, and really, I think the biggest issue here has to do with the use of town property for private business or private use. I think that's the crux of where the big issue is. I think the other stuff,
particularly in a non-commercial zone.
Yeah.
So, anybody else have any questions? We can let Kevin and Cheryl weigh in.
Wonder if they could, the people that park can put a plant on top of the car. The horticultural side of it. I'm just kidding, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. All right, Kevin and or Cheryl, you guys want to give us your take?
Well, we appreciate you giving us your time this evening. We're here to follow up on our letter to the town council, Preston Neal and Mike Gill, concerning access. First, we want to express our regret that we were compelled to be here today with this issue. With all the problems that folks have to navigate in our current daily lives, we acknowledge that this problem is trivial trivial in comparison. We have deep empathy for the people and businesses affected negatively by current conditions. This also affects our lives and customers also. We want to make an effort to have access to our property using the adjacent North Elizabeth Street for our small home business. We have historically used this street for access for 39 years, and so have other adjacent property owners. Since the town was platted 131 years ago, the town has never had any objections to anyone accessing their property through this street. We feel that the recent complaints from a single neighbor has forced the town to selectively enforce Ordinance 14-3-1. The complainant is not directly impacted by the use of parking on North Elizabeth Street, and we fear that this behavior could set a poor precedence that allows for frivolous and malicious complaints, which could give the town a reputation of an unkind place to live. We are hoping that the town will grant us the encroachment permit as asked for, so alternatives to the ordinance can be explored. We would hate to have this issue become a battle between lawyers and affect many others in town with similar circumstances. We don't want our business and visitors to cause problems for neighbors if the alley is temporarily blocked for drop-offs and pickups. The alleyway gets a lot of traffic. That is not part of our business. We prefer that the alleyway remain clear and safe access. We have always had a good relationship with our neighbors and the town and the county, as you have seen expressed by recent letters sent to Preston by neighbors and others. Helping others is an important part of our lives. I'd like to add one other item that we didn't write down. And go back to the first, to one sentence, how the town can selectively enforce certain ordinances regarding whether it's this ordinance 14-3-1 or the home occupancy ordinance. If everyone is going, if I'm going to be held my feet to the fire, I just look around town and I see numerous home occupancies, businesses that are in violation, which I don't think they should have, any issue. I don't have any issue with them. I don't think the town has any issue with them because nobody has made a complaint. So it just takes one person to make a complaint for the town then to hold the holy grail of, this ordinance over their head and say you're in violation. Because I look around town, if everyone is going to be held to the strict letter of the law of these ordinances, I'd just like to know why we're the only persons being held accountable. Because I look around and it's not, it's what comes around ain't going around.
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate your comments, and your points are well taken. Unfortunately, I think the fact of the matter is that Ridgway, due to its size and its resources, we do tend to have to legislate by complaint a lot. And since there has been a complaint filed, I believe that's what's triggered you to take out this encroachment permit application. You wouldn't have had to take it out if someone hadn't complained. So, again, my feeling is that there are, as staff has mentioned, that this probably isn't the best way to deal with the issue. And your points about other home occupations around town, there could be certainly there could be some very interesting ramifications if the town were all of a sudden forced to enforce every little encroachment, which happens all over the place, as you mentioned. So it's a sticky wicket, as they say. But I think, I personally tend to agree with staff, but I don't think that that the encroachment permit is the appropriate way, because the way to address your issue, your need there, because it's inappropriate for a home occupation in the residential zone to give you exclusive access to that portion of Elizabeth Street, where nowhere else in town does a home occupation have exclusive access to any public right of way. So what does the rest of council think?
We don't want exclusive access. We
Well,
want
that's
all
what-
all the neighbors with adjacent property to have access to, use that.
I understand, but the point is that the encroachment, that's not the way the encroachment permit works. It does create exclusive access. That's the question at hand. That's why I think there are other ways to deal with it. Eric?
So I guess I'm gonna ask a question, just to kind of figure out if Elizabeth Street was developed and went all the way through, and the O'Brien's customers were parking on Elizabeth Street or on the side of Elizabeth Street, just like people do on any other street, to drop off items or pick up items from the business, and not storing a vehicle there, or there's no permanent, you're not permanently storing a vehicle there, you're not permanently storing part of the business there in terms of machinery or something else, then I think to some extent, the street's still a public right of way, developed or not. And I think where the issue comes in is if all of a sudden that chunk of property is being used specifically for that business and nothing else. If it's just used for somebody to stop, park, drop something off, I don't see that there's a general issue. And Preston, you can please correct me if you think I'm wrong on that point.
No, I think you're on the right track, or I think I understand what you're saying, Eric. You're talking, so if North Elizabeth was fully constructed, kind of your standard thoroughfare, right? With
Yep.
Parking allowed on either side, would it be an issue then if folks were parking and venturing over to the O'Brien's house or their shop? Is that what the?
Yeah, and the fact that it's not constructed, but it's still a public, the reality is it's still a public right of way, correct?
Correct, even undeveloped.
Even undeveloped. So if somebody was temporarily to stop, drop something off and leave, it becomes less of an issue. Where I think it becomes an issue is if the O'Briens are storing vehicles or equipment or supplies or other things in the right of way, then that becomes a problem. If it's just a stop and drop, pick up and leave, then I don't see that there's an issue for the use of that right of way. It's the permanent storage of stuff that I think where it becomes a problem.
That, and potentially the possibility that customers could pull up, park on the developed or undeveloped Elizabeth Street, and Kevin comes out and actually works on their vehicle in the parking spot.
Yeah, then I agree. Then that's an issue.
Right.
It needs to be done within the inside the home occupation space, if that's going to be the case. So I think there's some nuance here in terms of how some of that works, but I think we have a little bit of a middle ground here if we wanted to.
Well, at that point, are we just issuing an encroachment permit to allow the O'Briens to put gravel in the right of way? I mean, at that point, there's not even really an encroachment permit issue. You don't issue an encroachment permit for people to park on the street. Because I noted when the O'Briens were speaking, that it was mentioned that has been used for access. And I think there is a difference between access and use, where access is a pass-through temporary thing, right? Versus someone is constantly parking or blocking or impeding that public right of way. Access is different. I can totally see in Ridgway in the summertime, if you're one of those neighbors nearby and it's dry, I can totally see how someone's going to drive in to access something, right? Like that's access, but you didn't leave something parked there.
Well, and technically, I think what Eric's saying and what I was saying out of the gate is that even undeveloped, people should be able to park on the edges, just like they would if it was developed in what we would call the parking area, which on a dirt street is undefined, but it's the edges of the street where everybody parks all around town on our dirt streets. And, theoretically, people should be allowed to park on even an undeveloped street because it is a public right of way. And as you say, Beth, also use it as a pass-through, as an access. I think, to me, what this really begs the question of is, do we need to amend a town policy in regards to how we treat undeveloped rights of way around town? Have staff write up either an amended or a brand new policy that addresses how residents can use undeveloped rights of way that abut their property. Because that seems like the cleanest, simplest way to address this issue.
It does. I agree. I'd like to hear from the rest of the council and see what other people are thinking about this too.
Yeah, I
As
don't-
of, go
Go
on,
ahead.
Russ.
Go ahead.
As of right now, as it sits, the area of encroachment that we're talking about has been plowed free of snow and has been pushed back to block the right-of-way itself between Clinton Street. So it would be on Elizabeth Street, at the intersection of Elizabeth Street and Clinton Street. So that right-of-way is impassable as it currently sits. Yet this encroachment area has been plowed clear and is essentially a loading dock for the shop. I like what John's saying about maybe looking into these right-of-way areas and how we all use them together if this is indeed a general access for everybody in town. Because as it sits right now, it's not currently that.
Yeah, because it's plowed all the way to Charles Street.
From
I don't know. I've noticed it plowed from Charles to the alley when I was running. So I don't know on the other end, but
on the Clinton side, it's blocked. It's inaccessible.
And I was
go on.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say the other piece of this is that, as Kevin was saying, if we're going to allow public use of these, like encourage and allow people to use the public right of ways, it needs to be very clear that they are not owned by the neighbors where it feels uncomfortable or wrong to pass down that public right of way.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Russ, go ahead with your comments.
Yeah, I mean, as it is, I don't really see and what we're talking about with not parking anything there permanently or storing things. If it's strictly to park to access the business and then leave, I don't see where the particular issue with this is. I can understand that the requested encroachment permit may not fall into what we really want to do, but I don't see the issue with being able to allow them to be able to have people park there. Given that, I think we should see if staff could do something to amend what we have to make it more reasonable for them to allow this.
Anyone else?
John, this is Cheryl O'Brien. May I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
Just to clarify on Mr. Grambley's comments, the reason the street is blocked from Clinton down to the alleyway is because there used to be a now abandoned irrigation ditch that crosses diagonally across that street. And there's a very sharp drop off from where the irrigation ditch used to be, and then it hits the lower end. So it's not blocked by snow or pushing, but it's blocked because that was the whole reason the street was never constructed, because of the irrigation ditch that was there that is now abandoned.
Cool. Thank you very much, Cheryl. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Terry or Angela, want to weigh in?
Yeah, I'm sympathetic. Sorry, Angela, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I agree with Russ and John about, maybe having the staff come up with a way of wording this where it's, it's okay for people to use the right of way if they're just coming and not parking something there that's going to be staying for a long period of time. So I agree with you guys on that.
Gary?
And I was gonna say, I'm pretty sympathetic to what the O'Briens brought up as part of the impetus for this situation. They've been kind of through the ringer on a number of things, and it seems somewhat, difficult that these circumstances are what brings this to light. So I would be in favor of looking for some alternative solution like you guys have suggested.
So just, John alluded to this a little bit, and I think it's important to notice that, town ordinances with small staff, small law enforcement, generally ordinances, unless there's sort of some blatant safety issue that's out there, they tend to get enforced by complaint. Particularly some of the, and I feel badly for Cheryl and Kevin that they ended up being the target of this. But once somebody complains, the town is sort of stuck. We can't just say, well, we're going to ignore that, but once somebody complains about an ordinance violation, the town is stuck going forward to investigate it and enforce it if needed. So it's a bad set of circumstances in this case. I don't think the town is actually
Sticky wicket, I like that.
singling anybody out deliberately. I think it's just the way that it happened based on a complaint.
Yep, the town is being forced to enforce its regulations.
Yeah.
And I would say our recourse is to consider changing the regulations, or at the very least, consider changing or creating, as I suggested, a policy that addresses use of undeveloped rights of way.
Totally agree.
It sounds like we can all agree that the undeveloped rights of way around town, like this one at Elizabeth Street, it's public property, and like any other street, it should be able to be used by the adjoining neighbors for appropriate uses, like parking, temporary parking, not permanent parking, not leaving abandoned vehicles or equipment, for that matter, in the right of way. But so I guess my question now would be to staff to say, can you guys imagine either, I don't believe we have a policy about use of undeveloped rights of way right now, do we?
I don't know. I don't have the code up in front of me, Shay, Bo, maybe you do. But
Joanne,
I would imagine, and I don't want to mischaracterize, but undeveloped sections of town rights of way are treated the same as developed sections. So we may be at a point where John, Eric, what you all were saying before already holds true based on how the code's written. But again, I don't have it open in front of me. In terms of it's town right away, regardless if it's developed or not, and it's available for members of the public to utilize, as in the example that's been provided, for parking short term. If you're jumping out and running into someone's house and then driving away a short time later, so it's probably a terrible analogy, but that's my 2 cents there. Bo, what are your thoughts?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that we probably want to take a little bit of analysis on this, just to kind of reset or reframe the issue. There is the question with respect to the O'Brien's application that staff needs to, that the council needs to consider. Nevertheless, it seems like there's been some direction in terms of use of the rights of way moving forward, and if there needs to be something under the code wherein we can work with the O'Briens, or if we want to provide an update to the council subsequent to this, we'd be happy to do that. So.
Yeah, because I would be opposed to approving this permit, but instead looking at that. And then, it would then raise questions about, can someone like the O'Briens put gravel down in that, right? Like, then there's all of those questions that would have to be addressed.
And the short answer there is no. I mean, there shouldn't be any sort of improvements in the right of way unless there's the encroachment permit that's provided.
But that would be a different kind of encroachment permit to allow for, placing some gravel in the right of way as opposed to, allowing sort of permanent personal access to that piece of right of way, I would think.
I think we just want to pay attention to the use and make sure that there's not some sort of expectation that exclusivity is created.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
I think that's what Eric's saying is I think, like, to me, a red flag is the ditch that Carol mentioned. If there's a abandoned ditch across there that's keeping it from being accessed from one end, then whose responsibility is it to, or not responsibility so much as who's allowed to, I mean, it's public property. I think Bo's point is if say the O'Briens or any one of the neighbors in that neighborhood wanted to grade over that ditch, fill it in, put some gravel in parking so that it wasn't just ankle deep clay mud, that would require an encroachment permit, but it would be couched in different terms than the existing encroachment permit because it wouldn't be stating that this is for exclusive use of any one property or home occupation. It would just be to improve the parking, as so many people have done around town,
right?
By putting down some gravel so that it's not just mud.
And there's standards that exist. I mean, the town has allowed other work within the encroachment area. I mean, you take a look at people that have taken down trees in front of their house that are in part of the encroachment area. I mean, that is an improvement that maybe benefits that homeowner, but at the same point in time, it's within that public access, if you will. So
right. Well, so what I'm hearing from Bo, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bo, is that you're recommending that we take action on the encroachment permit in front of us, obviously, and then we basically direct council or direct staff to take a look at how the existing code addresses these undeveloped rights of way and give us their input on whether they think there's some additional policy or potential regulation necessary to make it so that people can potentially actually use these spaces and do it in a way that's considered above board and legal. Does that make sense?
yeah, and I think that's a fair characterization of where I was at, John, in terms of, we absolutely need to consider the application by the O'Briens this evening. And then if we want some further direction with respect to these rights of ways, because there's all sorts of other issues, we can explore that and get back to council and or work with the O'Briens.
Okay. So I've heard at least a few of us state that we're in agreement with the staff's take on this to deny this permit because it goes above and beyond what would be normally expected of anyone on a developed street to be able to use parking exclusively for home occupation. And I want to make it clear to the O'Briens that what we would potentially be doing in denying this application is not out of lack of empathy or understanding for the conundrum you are in. It's more about trying to help you understand that the approach you've taken here just doesn't apply or isn't this the right way to go, because it would set a precedent that anybody could potentially ask for an encroachment permit to have exclusive use to the public right of way in front of their property for parking for home occupation, and that just flies against our home occupation rules altogether. We want to support you. We want to help you find a solution to this. We empathize with the difficult position you've been put in, but I don't know that there's a unanimous agreement here, but I think I've heard majority of you say that you understand why staff recommending to deny this permit application. So
It's as if our hands are tied to some extent with this approach.
it seems like it.
I think what we've been suggesting and moving forward is we're trying to come to that middle ground that would still allow use of that area for pick up and drop off for their business without an exclusive permit. So I think we're trying to work with, we're really making an effort here to try and work with this and make it work for them.
Yeah.
Is what I'm suggesting. So
Figure out a policy that allows property owners all over town that either developed or undeveloped town rights of way to be able to ask for permission to put down some gravel in the parking so that they can park their car out of the mud, for instance. So unless there's more comments, anybody in the audience want to weigh in? I want to make sure I give other members of the public who might be on this call to weigh in if you have a comment or a question. Seeing none.
I do have one other quick question on this, John. If we decide to decline this encroachment, which it sounds like we're headed in that direction, would it be illegal for them to use temporary parking there in the interim until we are able to come up with a better approach?
Well, that's a question for Bo, but my sense is
yeah, I think we just want to make sure that there's a clear understanding of that use, and that there's not any sort of permanent use of that encroachment, not the parking or storage of any vehicles or materials, things of that nature. So.
Okay, so what we're saying is it would essentially be okay in the interim until we come up with a better approach to allow them to do temporary parking along there. Is that what I heard, Bo?
If I may, I guess what we'd ask is that staff be allowed to, based on that direction, staff be allowed to have that conversation with the O'Briens and make sure that there's an understanding of what that looks like. So.
Okay, fair enough.
And it looks like we lost the mayor. I'm guessing he'll log right back on, but just wanted to call that to attention.
Well,
he was really still for a while there. Yeah.
Then I will take over. So it does sound like so we need a motion on this one way or another. If somebody's willing to make it.
The only question I have on that motion is, would we want to include a spot in there for requesting staff to come up with a longer term permanent solution on this?
No, I think that's, I think we've given them direction on that, and I don't think that needs to be part of the motion for the permit.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think that we've got direction, so it should just be consideration of the encroachment permit.
Okay, thanks.
I move to deny the revocable encroachment permit for use of town right-of-way for Cheryl and Kevin O'Brien.
I second that.
Moved by Beth, seconded by Kevin. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Farrelly.
Aye.
Grambly.
Aye.
Lakin.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Schuyler.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
All right. So let me get my agenda up here. See what's up next. So next is item number 12, update, discussion and direction on granular activated carbon water treatment upgrade project, town manager.
Thank you, sir. So hopefully you all have had a chance to read through the memo and the packet. It's pretty comprehensive, and kudos to Chase for doing a great job organizing it and providing the necessary background there. So bear with me. I'm going to introduce this and kind of give a 30,000 foot overview, and then turn it over to Chase and maybe even Joanne to go over some more details and the nitty gritty if necessary. So this is about the granular activated carbon, also known as GAC water treatment upgrade project. where the town would replace the chlorine dioxide treatment step with this GAC filtration alternative. At the end of the day, we're looking for council direction on how to move forward with this project. So shortly after receiving the DOLA grant funding, the EIF grant funding of $100,000 to support this project in 2021, staff received some updated cost estimates from a potential GAC supplier. The initial estimates resulted in a total cost of about $215,000 with the necessary media needing replacement every 3 to 5 years, I think it is or was. Staff got some updated cost estimates here in the last, I think, month or so. And the total capital cost is substantially higher than that mark before, around $280,000 now, with the media needing to be replaced much more often. So at the end of the day, these new cost estimates, including a much shorter media life, brings the cost of GAC, this filtration treatment alternative, to near or may even be above the cost of a new chlorine dioxide machine. If you'll recall from the budget conversations, the current chlorine dioxide machine is on its last leg. It's hanging on, but depending on the time of year, it's you know, there are issues, but last time I checked, it's chugging along. So to ensure that this GAC filtration alternative is a fiscally viable solution for taste and odor, staff would like to do more sampling. And so we all know the budget was adopted last month. It included a specific expenditure amount that could accommodate the initial cost estimates. But to move forward, the budget would need to be amended at some point with the higher and more accurate figure if council chooses to move forward. And based on some recent conversations with DOLA reps, specifically Rondinelli, our DOLA regional manager, and also based on the limited EIAF funding on the horizon, at least that's what we've been told, staff's recommending accepting the grant as has been granted to us and asking for a longer amount of time to complete the project, which is not unheard of. We've been told that extending the grant an additional 6 months or so from the termination date that was proposed to us when we were granted when the award was made shouldn't be an issue at all. So while the town may have to pay more than originally anticipated, there's no guarantee that we'll receive any funding in future funding cycles through DOLA if the money was actually returned now. So a lot there. Sorry to kind of skip around. Again, my intent was to give the overarching 30,000 foot overview. The memo Chase put together pretty comprehensive and did a good job capturing everything, I think, but I just wanted to make clear that we're looking for some direction from council here on how to move forward with this project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chase if Chase, if you'd like to add some stuff that I missed, and then after that, we can turn it over to council.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Preston. So I think you did a great job summarizing there. As he mentioned, we did get some rather unexpected and not so great news budget-wise in December from one of our potential GIC suppliers with some much higher numbers than they'd been telling us earlier in this process. We were successful in getting that grant from DOLA, which is great. With that help, you know, it brings the costs very comparable, like I said, or like Preston said. There's a lot of advantages as well as disadvantages with going to GIC. And there's also a number of things that are kind of hard to quantify monetarily as well with these either treatment method. You know, we've in those talks with DOLA, it came up on, you know, kind of the two options. We decline the grant that we got awarded, and we can potentially go back to DOLA, redo our scope a little bit to involve some sampling and potentially ask for a higher matching amount. But that's a big gamble. We don't know if we're going to get, we don't know if we'll get awarded that amount at all, or that award at all. This award, we did not even get our full amount. We asked for 107.5 and we got 100,000, so pretty close, but not quite our full amount. So my worry is that if we were to reapproach DOLA, for one, I'm worried that some of the members there may look unfavorably to us pulling a request and reapplying for the same thing. It depends on your perspective. I think some people could look at it as being thorough and being very good, and some other people could look negatively. And then I'm worried that if we do get the award, or I'm just thinking, it's often not for the full amount anyhow, and does the risk make up for the award, or for the potential increase in the award? So those are my thoughts there, personally. Joanne, do you have anything to add here that I've skipped over?
John, we're on item number 12.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that. Sorry, I got kicked off. Computer issues.
Need to see the Mac doctor.
Yeah, where is he?
I have a question, if I could. It's kind of a technical question. The in your write-up, it says the replacement frequency is to some extent based upon the incoming water quality. Is that proportionally true with the chlorine dioxide alternative, the current methodology? In other words, is there some sort of public information campaign or other means by which we can prevent incoming water quality issues to extend the longevity of the media?
So we pull our water, the water going into our plant goes through multiple preset ponds to try to get rid of that, gets rid of a lot of the sediments that we can settle out essentially through the process. Unfortunately, a lot of this TOC with this testing we're doing, total organic carbon, is dissolved, is primarily dissolved, so it can't be settled out, and it's coming through the water that way. So it makes it a little harder to pre-treat or to try to, settle out in our ponds ahead of time before hitting the plant.
But for example, could limiting the use of fertilizers or other chemicals that homeowners and or businesses use that put in the water system, by changing or encouraging a particular use pattern, we could improve the media's longevity? Is there something that, it seems to me that there's a lot of advantages to the GAC, irrespective of the cost issue. And I'm wondering if we can overcome some of those longer term or the repeat costs or the maintenance costs by some sort of an information campaign about how you place water into the system.
So our water sources lie above the town. There's relatively little impact in those. So even with a systemic change in people's habits or homeowners changing what they do on their properties, I believe would have very little effect on our source water. There's different, you can't say that about, if you're to look at New Orleans and you said, hey, if everyone upstream of the Mississippi stopped fertilizing, their water quality would change in a heartbeat. But where our water sources are coming from and where we pull water from, I don't foresee that as being viable myself.
Right.
One thing we've talked about over the decades is trying to get our water from Lake Tonawanda to the, actually, I think from the lake to the treatment plant is largely in a pipe. Is that correct?
That is.
But from the actual spring to Lake Tonawanda, we've talked about trying to put that in a pipe because it certainly goes through cow pastures and or pastures that cattle use. But again, the cost of that is always just been obviously a huge obstacle. And I'm not sure if it would affect, I missed the first part of this, so I'm not sure if it would affect, am I hearing that we're not sure we're going to be able to do the activated charcoal?
The we had some new quotes come in, estimates, John, that an update from a potential supplier that were significantly higher than they've been previously telling us.
Right, as the staff report says, right, reminded me.
So yes, there have been talks about piping the open ditch above Lake O in the past. That's more along, there would be some water quality benefits likely there, more carrying capacity in places, but that's a very expensive project. That would be a very large endeavor that I don't think we're ready for in the near term. I think that's a long-term goal.
Chase, can you remind me, was there some discussion if we continued with chlorine dioxide of needing to build some chlorine type storage room that was a decent chunk of change in the capital improvements plan, or am I making that up, or did that happen and I forgot?
No, great point there, Beth. We do not have a dedicated chlorine room. We kind of hold the current chlorine dioxide room is in kind of the back section of the water treatment plant that we keep the door closed and we try to isolate it the best we can. I can't say that it's a dedicated room. We've been, for years trying to balance that cost benefit. And it's not just the chlorine from the chlorine dioxide machine, but it's also for the chlorine we use for disinfection that's required by the state. So we use a considerable amount of chlorine there. So switching over to GIC, it might limit certain areas, or it'll definitely help with the chlorine that we have on site. It's going to limit that, but it will not completely eliminate the chlorine and the possibility of needing a room for the disinfection portion.
Okay, thank you.
Can you give me some clarity on what the difference here with a licensed operator and a B licensed operator would be regarding the use of the chlorine versus the GAC?
Right. So CDPHE just passed some new regulations that are coming down, and every water treatment plant has different level of licensing. The more complicated it gets, the higher level of licensing you have. Under their new regulations, the use of chlorine dioxide generated on site, like we have, I've tried to make it different story. Tried to make a case in the past, still working with CDPHE on that. But as it is currently written in the regulations, the use of chlorine dioxide on site would require an A license. There are 4 levels of licensing, A, B, C, D, A being the highest, D being the lowest. Our plant currently sits at a C licensing. Every increase in licensing, you need to take another test. You have to have a certain amount of years of experience and comes with certain responsibilities. And the difference moving forward, continuing to utilize chlorine dioxide, we may be forced to go to this A license, which is the highest licensing out there. And that primarily comes from a staff level. If we now have to have someone on staff and hire someone with the top level licensing, and with that comes recruiting difficulties as well as pay scale increases as well. Where for a B license, still in our small community, Western Colorado, can be difficult to find, but it's a step down. So theoretically, you should be easier to find someone with that licensing requirement, as well as have a slightly lower pay scale for that individual.
And we would have to have a dedicated operator to do it in either of these situations with an A or a B.
Yes. So currently we have, our plant is a C. Every treatment plant across the state, no matter who you are, has to have what they call an ORC, an operator and responsible charge. And right now that's Chris Belaine. He's our operator and responsible charge. He has the licensing for our plant, and he is the point person on anything to do with the state. Any time we fail, if we were to fail any kind of testing or regulation or anything, his name is the one that comes up. Is that what you're looking for, Russ? Anywhere else I can?
Well, I guess the question really is, Chris is handling it as a level, while we're at a level C. If we went with the GAC and required a B level license operator, would Chris be able to fill that, or would he actually have to hire a different individual just to manage that portion?
He currently holds a B. I believe he's studying and thinking about taking an A level test. There's no guarantees on if he will pass that or not. We do have a few years to comply here. So we got a little bit of time to work this out for the state. And as I said before, I'm trying, I've made a case multiple times with CWPHE to get a site-specific variance for us, for our chlorine dioxide. It's a bit of a David and Goliath situation. So, and I didn't want to continue down that path with since for a while it was looking we might transfer over, we still may transfer over to GAC. I didn't want to, utilize my time for something that may not come to fruition.
Understood. Yeah, appreciate it. All right, thanks. Appreciate that.
Having missed the first part of this discussion and reminded myself of the staff report details, has there been any discussion about why there was the discrepancy between our first estimate of what this was going to cost and then getting the increased estimate from a new supplier? Is there a chance that we just need to find another supplier who can get closer to what we thought it was going to cost first?
Yes, very good question, John. As you may or may not have been here during this, but yes, it was a surprise when we got this updated number back. Not a welcome one, and very frustrating, to be honest, to be told the second number from this potential supplier. We are by no means forced or handcuffed to go with this supplier. I've made it very clear with them from the beginning that this project is over our limitation, and or financial limitation for, sorry, I'm going brain dead here, but we're gonna have to go to bid for it. I've been very upfront with them from the beginning, and I've been expecting to go to bid. So, just with any other project, we often find different contractors, different people that are able to give us a ballpark estimate with what they can do. They'll help us out. Maybe we can do some preliminary testing with them. But when it comes time for the full project, we'll still go out to bid and give others a chance to come in. We did this, we did that with the Lena Street project. We got to give us double check our engineer's estimates, Joanne's estimates against the contractor. By no means did that force us to go with that contractor. We still went out to bid and give the market a chance.
Chase, could that bid process occur during this period while we're holding on to the grant and doing the additional testing? Does that timing line up?
So going out to bid and doing that project would, as Preston mentioned, we would likely ask for a 6-month extension in the agreement when signing the grant. And within that would essentially give us a 1.5 years, give or take. And within that time period, we would need to finalize our testing, our design, go out to bid, and then start on the install.
Because to your point, in light of, on the uncertainty with budgets and so forth, this is kind of a bird in the hand. It's kind of tough to let it fly away.
Right.
So I think that Preston mentioned that our current chlorine dioxide treatment machine is kind of on its last legs. Like, how do you have an idea of how long it's going to last before it decides that it no longer wants to? And will the time that it takes to do continued testing with the GAC, like, will our current system be able to get us through to that implementation of the new system?
Yeah,
Yes.
great. Go ahead, Chase.
No, go ahead. Take it
Well,
away.
You can correct me if I'm wrong with some of this stuff, but good question. My understanding is that the machine is, like, I think approaching 10 years old, if maybe even over that now. And given the time of year, the volume and its application isn't as heavy as it would be as it would in, like, say, the spring and summer months. So at least that's my understanding from Chris. So it's chugging along good now. That's my word. But as we approach March, April, May, we could see some issues with that. So in the end, it's either GAC or foot the bill for lease a brand new chlorine dioxide machine that would maintain the status quo, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a little bit of history here as well. On top of that is last year, we had a number of problems with the machine, and we had the tech, their tech fly out, fix it every time. And every time, we'd ask them the same thing. How much time do we got? We have to plan for this. We need to know what's going on. And multiple times, it's just kind of like, well, we've replaced everything. We're not sure what can go wrong still. And it could go out soon. It could last another 5 years. It's really, we had a string of failures that really made it seem like it was on its last leg 6 to 8 months ago. And then for the last 4 months, it's been working great. So it's just more of a confidence at this point. And many of us on Public Works do not have a great confidence in this machine with its age and some of its history.
But Chase, what happens if that thing would just go kaput and you couldn't fix it?
So first of all, it is, I should note, it is for secondary taste and odor. Our water would still be very drinkable, safe to drink if it goes out. What happens when it fails? It depends on the time of year, for one. In the winter, we have slightly different water coming in. It's not as big a deal. And we're making less water, which changes things a little bit. In the summertime, if it goes out, we can get very yellowy water. So your water we've gotten complaints from people, elderly couples that have been in fights, blaming each other for not flushing the toilet, like that kind of thing. Then come to find out it's our water that's a little yellow. So it's mainly a color. It's an aesthetic quality. It brings on a yellowish tint. It's not something that, even though it's perfectly safe to drink, it makes, it passes all the tests, all the requirements. Aesthetically, it's just not that appealing.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm.
And we just need another, is it 6 months for continued testing to understand how long the media would work or would last for us in the GAC system?
Yeah, so the tests we have right now are from kind of summer going into fall. They came back fairly high. That's why the initial estimated time to exchange the media went from a 3 to 5 year time frame to a year less. The hope and the thought is that in the ecological cycle here through our ponds and through the organics, we were sampling kind of at the peak of what these levels are going to be. And as we have a test in right now, I'm waiting to get samples back from the lab for a, middle of winter month. We'll take out another sample in a month to 2 months and so on, continue taking. And we're hoping that here in the wintertime and into spring, that organic level will drop considerably. And if we have a much lower organic level for a large portion of the year, then we can extend that. Then the theoretical lifespan of this media would be, go up to 2 years or so. And that makes a big cost difference.
Right.
Right. So we're hoping to, best we can, try to get a representative sample from each season to more, at least for a 12-month, try to kind of do a 12-month period.
Okay, so I guess 6 months more of sampling to be able to go back to DOLA and say, like, yes, we want to use the grant money, because that'll give us a long enough time frame of sampling collection.
I think so. I think at the longest it would be 6 months. With every test that comes in, we'll have a better idea of what's happening. But within it, I think, come July here, would that be 6 months? Yeah, we need to be making a decision on whether we're proceeding or not.
Please remind me what the cost of the media is to replace it.
Say that again, Eric. I missed
Remind
that.
me what the cost of the media is to replace it.
So reactivating the media, it can be reactivated, reused, recycled, so to speak. That would cost currently about $40,000. To get new media would cost about $46,000. So we'd be looking, in the 40s every time we replaced it.
Chief,
And
what is you said our chlorine dioxide machine is 10 years old. What is the expected lifespan of whatever the initial setup is? Like, how long can we just keep replacing media in that?
It's a continuous feed. So we continually give it new chemicals or switching out barrels all the time. It's more the mechanical components that are going out, not anything chemical. But
no, I understand that. I guess so. It's 10 years seems like a fairly reasonable expected lifespan for those mechanicals. So, if we're saying we're investing, because honestly, if we look at the yearly cost, for the first 4 years of any given, I don't know, it's almost a wash. I guess I'm thinking we get a new carbon or chloride dioxide machine and we can expect 10 years out of that while continuously replacing chemicals. What are we looking at for the GAC?
Right. So you're right. The current chlorine dioxide machine that we have is at and above its expected lifespan. That's it. It's right there. For GAC, what's really limited for its lifespan is the media itself. So other than the media, it's just a system. It's just a series of valves and tanks, fiberglass tanks. The lifespan on the fiberglass tanks that we'd be utilizing, it's hard to get a lifespan because people just say they're gonna last forever. And then for the valves and pipes and everything, that they have a very long lifespan as well. We might have to replace them periodically, just like we do with other parts of the system. But there's no, it's not as complex and intertwined mechanical system as the chlorine dioxide is. It's very passive,
right?
Compared to.
I mean, my initial response is yes, we should ask DOLA for the extension, continue monitoring the TOC, and then go out to bid. I mean, the systems ultimately aren't that different in cost. And I think there's a lot of things to be said about using GAC.
Mhm. I agree. That's very true, with one caveat that we need to remember in there, and that is it just all goes back to this media. If we get these tests in and they're just as high, or say for some weird anomaly, we live in the twilight zone and all of a sudden in the middle of winter, we have higher TOCs, where that's going to force us to change our media more often. And if we're changing media every 6 months to a year, it's going to be considerably more expensive. If we can get that media to last at least a year to 2 years, maybe 3 years, I think there's still a great cost savings there, and there's a lot of other great benefits as well. I would feel more comfortable, doing more sampling. I really don't want to sign up the town for a major cost and a long-term commitment and have it go not to plan.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Beth that it's a good idea to, ask for the extension so that we can continue doing testing and, just see what those results look like and make a decision from there.
And real quick, just to note on that extension, in this case, it'd be like 6 months. The grant agreement termination date that's been presented to us is December 31st of 2021. So that 6-month extension would go beyond that. So then we'd be looking at July of 2022. So that would afford us, some additional time, through the spring into the summer to do this, through the winter, excuse me, now through the spring to do the additional testing. And like Chase was getting at, I don't remember the acronym, is it TLC? Those end up being high and it ends up being not cost effective to go with this alternative. We'll need to revisit this discussion and have you all weigh in on how to move forward. Thinking out loud, sometime late spring, early summer. And, I don't want to be cynical by any means, but it may end up being that we have to turn the money back over to DOLA, which was, sounds super sad to say. Sorry to say that out loud, but again, I'm just trying to paint that picture for you all, pending what the data shows. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's good input, and I appreciate that. And given that, I think we should request the extension and continue to work this one.
Yeah, I agree. Boy, it sure seems like that initial distributor kind of sold us a pig in a poke with his initial cost estimates and everything else.
Yeah, I agree. We're not extremely happy with them at the moment.
Yeah.
And when we saw those numbers, I think I can speak on behalf of Joanne. If I can't, Joanne, let me know. But we both saw their new numbers and estimates come in, and it was kind of a, whoa, hold on, what are you talking about here? This is dramatically different than the snake oil you've been selling earlier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest issue is, having said, oh yeah, the media will last 3 to 5 years before you have to replace it. And now it's like, oh yeah, it could be only 6 months or a year and you're going to have to replace it. It's like, that's a big difference.
And we'll activated carbon remove snake oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a major difference. And with that cost being the primary cost of this method long-term, that's the cost of running the system.
And that would be, that would be tough.
Also,
I think, let's go for the extension and see what we can do.
Yeah, it's just what I was going to say. So in the interest of keeping things moving here, it seems like the staff is recommending that we ask for the extension, take the next 4 to 6 months to evaluate whether we can move forward. I think there's a whole lot of quite a few reasons to go with GAC if we can, and we'll cross our fingers that we can make it work. As Beth said, if things work out in our favor, the cost differential isn't that different and the benefits are huge. So I think we should authorize staff to move forward, to ask for the extension and cross our fingers that we can make it work. So I think we need a motion to that effect.
I think direction will suffice here. So as long as I saw some thumbs up and head nods, so great.
Okay. All right.
That
Thanks,
was
everybody.
that was a great explanation, Chase. Thanks for all the background info on that. Thank you.
Certainly.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry,
you
it's
guys.
such brain damage for you, but keep up the good work.
Thanks. And feel free to reach out if you got any questions.
Okay.
Right on. Thanks.
All right. So again, I apologize for getting kicked off there. Second time this week that's happened where my computer, I don't know if it's Zoom or what, but something happens and my computer can't connect to the internet at all anywhere. I have to restart and it works. Anyway, that's more than you probably wanted to know. Brings us to item number 13, approval for purchase of water truck as budgeted in the 2021 fiscal year budget. I believe we have to do this just because of the size of the expenditure. So Pam or Preston?
Yes, the 2021 fiscal year budget contains $50,000 for purchase of a water truck. This is replacing a 1976 Mack truck, which is rusting. These funds were budgeted in the 2020 budget and were cut at that time when council looked mid-year at doing some cuts just to see where we were going to come out at the end of the year. So this has been placed back in for 2021. And staff has located a used 2005 International truck with a rebuilt engine and new water tank and spray heads for $37,000. We did look at our procurement policy. There was a provision that allows the town manager to waive the formal request process if we only have one vendor that can successfully furnish the equipment, which we felt was definitely something we should pursue, because we did talk to this vendor last year and found them to be much able to offer equipment at a much lower price. So we talked to them about delivery on this item, and they can deliver it for $2,000. So staff is asking council to approve this purchase at $37,000 with an additional $2,000 expenditure to have it delivered here.
Sounds like a good move.
Yep. Like Mike's done his amazing work again.
Totally.
Well, I'll move that we approve the expenditure, $37,000 plus $2,000 for delivery of a new water truck for the Public Works Department.
Second.
I think Kevin beat you to it by half a second. Motion made by Eric, seconded by Kevin. All those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Council members Farrelly,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Schuyler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Passes unanimously. Tell Mike thanks for doing his usual great job finding us awesome used equipment. That takes us to item number 14, discussion and direction on idea of merging Ridgway Main Street program with the Ridgway Creative District. Deidre, are you going to handle this one?
I will. Thanks, John. Thanks, Mayor. There is a memo in your packets that it describes what is leading me to ask for your direction on this. And before I head into that memo to mention that, I want to recognize Betsy Beyer, who is here, and also Joan Chismeyer, Diane Thompson, and of course, Kevin Gramley is also part of the CAT these days. And I especially want to note that Betsy has served 3 years as a very strong chair for the creative advocacy team of the Creative District, and she has resigned as chair and is leaving the cat. And since she's here and we're doing something public, I just want to say a huge thank you to Betsy for all the work that she's done over these last really 4 years that she's been part of the group, but I think 4 years. Is that right, Betsy? I think so. 3 years as chair, though. So thank you, Betsy. And also Brenda's not here, Brenda Ratcliffe, but Brenda has served for 2.5 years as vice chair, or sometimes she calls herself co-chair. They've worked together a lot on things. And I want to recognize Brenda as well, even though she's not here. So, and it's apropos, actually, that I'm mentioning the two of them because they are really the impetus for my coming to you with this request to consider and discuss restructuring for the Creative District Creative Advocacy Team at this time. For those who have read the memo, you'll know that I presented some background information on how long we've been a creative district, how long we've been in Main Street, the fact that we started with quite a few committees, about 6 committees working on for the citizen engagement for both of the initiatives that the town has with Creative District and Main Street, and that we've kind of reduced that down to 1 because it was manageable. At this point in time, COVID's had a big effect really on the energy of the group. And there's a desire and a suggestion from the creative advocacy team to kind of merge volunteers for Main Street and for the Creative District and create a group that includes some business representation that really has a more full representation of our whole downtown community and not only the creative side of it. Lots of our businesses are creatives. Most of the work plan of Main Street and Creative District has overlapped. Both of the initiatives are really working towards the same end goal of a thriving downtown community. And I am presenting to you, and I also have the pros and cons in the memo for you as well on, really just to say, I think it would make a lot of sense to do this restructuring. We've been merging these 2 programs over the last few years, but we have never really merged the citizen engagement part of it. And when we discussed this at the Creative Advocacy Team meeting in December, there was definite consensus that it made a lot of sense to pursue this. It might bring in some new energy. It would create a group that might feel more representative of our downtown, and the group was very much in favor of it. And some of the people who are on the CAT have said that they would continue on it. Some we would definitely be bringing in new. So it will require some more work for sure on the staff end to go that route, but I am offering it to you that I think it's a good idea despite some of the cons. And I'm looking for your thoughts and questions about it and your direction.
Great, thanks, Deidre. I assume everybody's had a chance to read the memo, and I would add my thanks and gratitude to Betsy and Brenda for your years of service as somebody who has been involved in the Creative District intimately at the beginning and peripherally in the last few years. I do think it's probably one of the coolest things that's ever happened to this town of Ridgway. And so everyone that helps make it happen and has put in their heart and soul into it just deserves a lot of gratitude. So thank you. And I would just ask if anybody on council has questions about the memo or questions about the concept. I think it makes a whole lot of sense, personally.
I agree with you, John. I think it makes a ton of sense. I mean, and Deidre's point was well made in the fact that, both those initiatives are really working towards the same thing. And if we can combine some efforts and maybe there's some economy of scale from a personnel energy standpoint that might be gained from that.
Yeah, I think looking at the cons in the staff in the memo is, raises my eyebrows a little bit, but I don't think any of those things are unattainable. And I think they're outweighed by the pros from what it looks like to me as somebody who's been involved with both for a while. Anybody else have comments, questions?
I do.
Go ahead, Becky.
Yeah, I just like to say, I think, I just like to kind of reiterate that it makes a lot of sense. One of the most successful things we've done in the last few years is our First Fridays program in the summertime. And that was for 2 years before COVID. So it was in 18 and 19. And I think if we had a committee that represented Main Streets in addition to the Creative District, I think that it would be, the businesses would feel more inclined to feel a part of what's going on. For some of the businesses like the liquor stores or whatever, I'm just bringing them out for no good reason, but you know, we want everyone to feel like they're part of some of the things that we're doing. And I think bringing the Main Streets concept into it would be most helpful. And I think it's going to create more of a synergy with all of the businesses in downtown as we do our Creative District efforts.
Thanks, Betsy. Yeah, I agree. Joan, did you want to weigh in?
I just was going to concur with what has been said. I think that in the past, it's been a little bit difficult. There have been a few businesses that not necessarily were left out, but just didn't quite fit in everything that we were doing. And this would just bring everybody together and have a more cohesive approach for helping everyone in town. So I really like this idea.
Yeah, for those of you who might not know, Joan Chismeyer is a longtime member of the Creative District, now Creative Advocacy Team. So good to get her take on it. Anybody else on council want to weigh in? Any questions?
Just to say that I'm also in strong support. I love the streamline idea and kind of bring everybody together under one broad umbrella that hopefully can do a lot for town. So I'm a big fan of the idea.
Yeah, I think it seems to make sense.
Great. So as to the transition process, I think sounds like we don't need necessarily a motion to authorize the transition and direct staff to move forward with the change. I guess I'd ask Deidre and the others if there's anything you guys need from us in the way of support in making this happen.
No, I think really just direct was making sure I was moving in a direction that fit for town council. Sounds like it does. So that's what I'm hearing. There's a consensus there at least from those who've spoken. So I think, yeah, we just move into the transition process and we will bring it back to council because we will probably want to officially change. Well, I don't know for sure what we'll do with the name. We may want to change the name and we'll certainly want to change it in whatever form. Preston might be able to help with this, but whatever form standing committees take, we'll need to make some change in that, since right now it's the RCD. I think it may still even say RCD committee. I'm not sure what it says, or if it says Creative Advocacy Team. I don't remember us officially changing it in any formal way when we changed the name to the CAT before, but we may need to do that now since structurally it is kind of a different entity. So we'll bring that back.
Okay. Yeah, just so you know, it's on our agenda for committee reports as the Ridgway Creative District Creative Advocacy Team. So
okay, good.
And I guess I'm curious, would the Creative District itself, the Ridgway Creative District, be rebranded in your mind?
I've been branding the two programs together as Ridgway Creative Main Street. So I think I would probably continue with that. I don't know that we would want to change, and really say we no longer have a creative district and it's just Creative Main Street, but that might be an option. I mean, I think it's something that the group should probably discuss. And I don't know, I have not talked with Colorado Creative Industries about how, if they would see that as anything problematical. I mean, everything I do, mostly that I do these days, says Ridgway Creative Main Street on it.
Cool.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest that you reach out to Christy and Margaret and get their take on. I imagine they'd be totally supportive, and I'm more just curious about kind of branding since we have a logo and everything for the Creative District. But that shouldn't keep us from potentially rebranding in any way. Not everyone has spoken up on this, but can I get at least a thumbs up from everybody feeling okay with this? There you go.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
all
Betsy.
for all your efforts. And look forward to seeing where it goes from here. Oh, I should ask anybody in the audience want to weigh in? Anybody have any questions for Deidre or any of the outgoing CAT members or Joan as an ongoing CAT member? Don't see any hands up, but I'll make sure I give people opportunity to speak. Seeing none, I think we're good. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, say hello to Rob.
Yep. All right, that takes us to item number 15, review and action pertaining to order extending the declaration of local disaster in and for the town of Ridgway related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Preston.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This one's kind of the same as it ever was. So with the town and Ridgway County continuing to navigate the response to the pandemic, and then all the subsequent phases, we're talking vaccine distribution, reopening, economic recovery. Staff's recommending that the declaration, the local disaster declaration be extended to June 10 of this year, so June 10th.
Okay. Anybody on council have questions, concerns, comments for staff? Seems like it's pretty logical given the forecast looks to be for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
No comments. Anybody in the audience have questions or concerns? Okay, so we're just introducing this emergency ordinance? No, it's an emergency, so it's we're voting to approve, right?
I'll move to approve the order extending the declaration of a local disaster in and for the town of Ridgway.
Second.
I think Angela got it.
Yeah.
She got it.
First, second, nice job. Motion's made and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmembers Fraley,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Schuyler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Great, thank you, everybody. Passes unanimously. And I'm sorry I misspoke. It's this next one that's the emergency ordinance. And it's item number 16, emergency ordinance extending temporary amendments to the zoning regulations related to temporary signage. Preston?
Yeah, so, and real quick, just to back up on that declaration extension, I'll just fun fact for you all, we file that with the Ridgway County Clerk and the state's emergency management office. So I'll get that sent over to them. And then, as you said, Mayor, this is an emergency ordinance extension. So back in May, so kind of give a background here, especially for Angela's sake. So bear with me. So back in May, council adopted temporary amendments to the town sign regulations by way of an emergency ordinance. It relaxed certain signage requirements for businesses for, at the time, it was a 4-month period until September 13th. And so normally a business has to apply for a sign permit before installing a portable sign within town right away. And then kind of in recognition of the environment created by COVID and the pandemic on the business community and traditional business operations, the emergency ordinance waived the need for a portable sign on town right away, a proposal or a sign permit application to be submitted to the town with the applicable fee and for it to be reviewed and approved by town staff. So it was September 9th, I think it was, council extended the temporary amendments to January 14th, which is tomorrow, which is why we're here. So staff has prepared the attached emergency ordinance, further extending the temporary amendments in the event that council has an interest in in doing so, but there's a series of options presented in the memo before you.
Okay, anybody have any comments, questions, concerns for staff or otherwise on this one?
I mean, I'm of the mind that as long as we're in the emergency declaration, you know, we're still in a situation where businesses aren't fully open and restaurants are at limited capacity. And if we can help them out with signs, if they find that useful, I would say that we approve the ordinance extending the amendments.
I agree.
Me too.
Okay, want to turn that into a motion?
I move to approve emergency ordinance number 02-2021, an emergency ordinance of the town of Ridgway, Colorado, extending temporary amendments to the sign regulations.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded, and I apologize, I forgot to give the audience a chance to weigh in, but I think this is pretty straightforward, so I think we'll move forward. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Council members Farrelly,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer.
I think Russ, did we hear an aye from you?
I didn't hear my name called, but aye.
Yeah.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Great, thanks, everybody. And even though we just passed that, I'll give you one quick opportunity to publicly weigh in if you had any questions or concerns. Looks like we're down to mostly staff anyway in the audience. All right, so moving along, we are down to a couple of items that are on my docket. Item number 17, resolution supporting the 30 by 30 campaign to protect 30% of lands and it should read waterways by 2030. I assume you've all read the information in the packet about the 30 by 30 program. I attended a very informative Zoom call / webinar about it. I love that their information packet has Mount Sneffels on the cover. Like everyone always uses our mountains for their materials. It was a really great meeting, chaired by a guy or moderated by a guy from Conservation Colorado. Representative DeGette from the Front Range from Boulder, I guess, was on, and she was incredibly inspirational and supportive. I think all of you know how important environmental action is to me personally, and I think it always has been to council as well. So it was requested that we pass an ordinance supporting this campaign, and that's what I'm asking you guys to approve tonight. Anybody have any questions or comments about it?
Ordinance or resolution, John?
It's a resolution. Did I say ordinance?
Yeah.
Sorry, resolution.
Okay. No, and all for it.
All for it.
Yeah, I agree with the concepts and all this. I'm curious, are they really just looking for our support in this, or what else is involved at this point from the town?
Mostly just the moral support and support that resolution represents, formal support from the town. I think your question gets to some of the questions that were brought up on the Zoom call, which is, how do municipalities, how do we get involved? How do we document, in my view, both any new efforts we do to protect lands and waters in Erie County, but also to, get credit for parks and open space, and even like the fact that the town acquired a lot of the river frontage in the last 10 years. Even though that's been done, I don't think it's been credited in any formal way to this kind of effort. So I'm going to continue to see how we can take advantage of that. And there was a lot of talk at this Zoom call about how some of these questions are still, the answers are still being worked out. But, I don't think it's going to involve any major amount of workload or hours for town staff or anything like that. But it certainly makes sense for us to be thinking about this concept as we move forward and make decisions about land use in the town and in the county, I hope, going forward.
Okay.
And Mayor, if I may, this resolution is simply just memorializing a policy position. There's no financial implications or anything of the sort. It doesn't bind the town to any sort of monetary contribution or anything like that. Just wanted to make that clear.
And it sort of goes hand in hand with the master plan, in terms of preservation of the environment. I mean, it ended up being a big piece of the master plan, so.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that really kind of led me to question this was the comment about now therefore be it resolved, that last sentence there, locally led efforts to conserve and restore at least 30% of land and water by 2030. And again, it was just curious if there was anything more than us just supporting the general concept, if there's something else that they were expecting from the town.
No, I mean, I think what that implies is that the town council is interested in trying to find ways to conserve and restore at least 30% of lands and water by 2030. The efforts are what it's all about, and that's why I said we'll have to continue to keep this concept at the forefront of our thoughts as we face land use decisions going forward. But no, there's no formal requirement that we do something towards that end, other than just we're committed to do what we can to accomplish that, basically.
Okay, agreed. And again, I don't think anybody probably has on this council probably has an issue with that. So, including myself. So,
It's all about how we do it. Right? Yeah. Okay. Well, somebody willing to make the motion then?
I move to adopt resolution number 21-001, supporting the 30 by 30 campaign to protect 30% of lands and ocean by 2030.
Second.
Great. I think that was Angela. Making second again. Motion made by Kevin. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Council members Farrelly.
Aye.
Grambly.
Aye.
Lakin.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Skylar.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Great. Passes unanimously. Thanks, everybody. This item number, let's see, what is it? 18? Yeah, item number 18, you have in your packet the Mountain Pact sign-on letter. Again, most of you are familiar with the Mountain Pact. We are a member of the Mountain Pact, which is a group of kind of a consortium of mountain communities all over the West, from California through Utah, Colorado, Montana, Idaho, with the belief that a lot of small mountain towns that wouldn't have much of a voice in national matters on their own have a much bigger voice coming together as the Mountain Pact. And with the change in administrations coming up under President-elect Biden and Secretary nominee Deb Haaland, the Mountain Pact has created this sign-on letter laying out some transition priorities and asking that the new administration really do what they can to try and turn things around compared to what the previous administration has done in terms of environmental action and weakened regulations and lack of any focus whatsoever on climate change. So again, I think with Ridgway's history of being a local leader in environmental action, I'd like to see if everybody would agree to sign on to this letter.
Yeah, I think we should sign on.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, it's all the right thing.
What'd you say, Russ?
It's all doing the right thing.
It's all doing the right thing. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so someone needs to make a motion.
I move to sign on to the Mountain Pact's letter to the Biden administration and the 117th Congress.
Second,
Let's see, who was that? Was that Terry or Kevin?
that was me.
Kevin. Motion made by Russ, seconded by Kevin. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Farrelly,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Great, thanks, everybody. It's down to the wire on this, so I'm emailing Anna right now to say that we voted to sign on. Just so you know, Preston. That takes us to item number 19, authorization for myself to sign a letter of support for expanding the Impact Development Fund's down payment assistance program to Uray County.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks for emailing Hannah. So the town has been asked to submit a letter or a support letter for a larger financial allocation to the Impact Development Fund to expand their down payment assistance program to Uray, Montrose, and San Miguel counties. The acronym's IDF. IDF is planning to request additional Division of Housing dollars for this program during the next funding cycle. And seeing as right now they only have an allocation that allows them to serve eligible households in areas of northern Colorado. So again, the request is a support letter to supplement their request to the Division of Housing.
Okay. Again, does anybody have any comments or questions about this? Concerns?
And this sounds like a good thing. At the end of the day.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Move we sign on to the letter, or we authorize Mayor Clark to sign the letter of support for Impact Development Fund's application that requests an amendment to the Division of Housing for expanded geographic eligibility under their single family down payment assistance program.
Second.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Eric. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Farrelly,
Aye.
Grambly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Skylar, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Was he there?
Aye.
Great, thanks, everybody. Preston, I'll get that signed and out to you after the meeting. Let's see, that takes us to town manager's report. Is there anything either Preston you want to highlight for us, or is anybody on council have anything in the town manager's report they want to comment or have questions about?
Mayor, I can highlight a couple things since I got this out a little late. I think it showed up in your inboxes yesterday. I won't go through the whole thing. Happy to if you all want me to, but I think want to note the space to create pre-development piece that Deidre kind of penned here. But the update is there's been a little bit of back and forth between our plan, our staff from the planning perspective, and HHL, the architecture firm, on the building permit piece. And so we had a number of comments for them, and it seems that they've addressed a lot of that and sent back our way some stuff to supplement the building permit application. So I probably butchered that explanation, so sorry about that. And so in the works, that building permit. So that's exciting. And last I heard from Andrew in the Art Space team, closing is getting pretty close, looking at February now, right, John?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And John, I don't know if it would be appropriate, but we had received an email from Andrew earlier today about a potential grant to help the project, right?
Yep. I think it sounded like it was public knowledge.
Yeah, and I don't remember the amount. It was from the Division of Housing, wasn't it?
It was 650,000.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's a huge deal, and definitely helps the funding gap there for the project. So that's great news. I definitely just wanted to touch on that for a little bit. Deidre's been working hard. I don't know if Deidre's still on here, but working really hard with in conjunction with Hillary to get the Heritage Park and Visitor Center Subcommittee up and running. The first meeting of that subcommittee will be February 3rd at 5:30 p.m. I don't know what day of the week that is, but it is February 3rd. And I worked a little bit with Deidre and Hillary on putting together a stakeholder list. I think the invitation for that subcommittee, the stakeholder list had about like 24 or 25 names on there. So hopefully we garner quite a bit of participation on that subcommittee. So looking forward to that first meeting and probably a total of 3 or 4 meetings to review the Heritage Park and Visitor Center strategic plan and help inform a more specific recommendation and guide for investments in that area here over the next, I'm making this up, 2 to 4 or 5 years. So, and if I remember right from the last time we talked about this in the town council meeting setting, it was Mayor Clark, I think Kevin, Terry, and Beth who had showed interest in participating on that committee, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Great. So those were 2 things I just kind of wanted to highlight. There's a lot more in this report, so happy to answer any questions or go over anything else. Actually, something that I didn't put in the report that I meant to is an update on the working group for the economic resiliency plan. And Russ, I'm wondering if I wasn't able to attend Monday's meeting. I'm wondering if you were able to, and if you want to give maybe a brief update on that working group.
Sure. Yeah, I was able to attend. The group has pulled together a fair amount of the documentation, shared what they had with us, and they will be continuing to progress that plan and will be presenting to us. I believe it's on the 20th is the intent for the next meeting, and should be fairly close to done with it at that point. I could be wrong on that date.
That's probably the date where they'll present it to the working group, right? And then with the aim of taking it to the joint policy group meeting, that would be on like the 27th. Is that right? 28th, maybe?
28th.
Thursday.
Yeah, the 25th would be when they would plan to share it back with the working group. Nobody's working, they're not working on the 18th. So.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. But yeah, EPS is plugging away and keeping us updated as we go. They've been weekly meetings, but with the holiday coming up, we won't meet on Monday. So sorry to jump in with another update, but I thought of that.
No, that's fine. Totally makes sense. Thanks for that. Interesting stats, your graphs about building permit and construction. Pretty amazing, 51 new units in 2020. Biggest number since 2005. It's pretty impressive for what a year 2020 was.
Yeah, quite a bit of activity. And actually Shay put all those graphs together.
That includes the 30 units for Space to Create in that.
Does it? I don't think it would.
Say again, Terry?
So that includes the 30 Space to Create units in that number?
Yeah, it accounts for those units.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense because we haven't started construction. Is that, oh, I guess it says, yeah, sorry, I wasn't reading. It does say. Gotcha. My mistake, sorry. And as Shay points out in her part of the report, the landscaping regulations update is in the works. We're going to be discussing that again at the planning commission meeting at the end of the month, if any of you want to join us. And I don't know, what's the thumbs up, thumbs down on the joke of the month, joke of the day?
Well, I heard something else that Dwayne Johnson is also doing that because The Rock is man enough.
That's even worse.
That one is way worse.
I came up with that earlier today. I've been dying to say it.
All right.
What do you think, Preston?
I thought that was gold.
I'll give
think-
Preston a thumbs up on this month's joke.
I thought
Thanks,
this
Eric.
was one of the better ones, actually. I'm sure Bo would beg to differ, but he still hasn't stepped up himself. So.
I haven't seen it, Bo.
Well, I guess the pressure's on since, you know, I provided a showstopper with my Ravens joke. So
Did I miss the Ravens joke while I was out?
That was
or murder of crows. Sorry.
Oh,
I like the murder of crows joke.
Yeah.
Angela, you can tell this is one of our traditions, and it's
Yeah.
pretty corny. But at this time of night, it usually puts a smile on our faces. So, well,
We were
thanks
like
for another.
efficient. It's only 10 after 8. Like we
Yeah.
were on it.
What's up?
What do you guys want to talk
15
about?
items? Yeah.
I know we're still time to party, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Time to dinner, yeah.
Time to go eat.
All right. Well, thanks for another great town manager's report, Preston. Does anybody have any committee reports? I'm hearing crickets. Things are pretty quiet these days, aren't they?
Mayor
Yeah.
Pam has something to talk to y'all about, actually.
Okay, Pam, go ahead.
I just wanted to update the council on something that is happening throughout the state. We've been discussing it through our online chat with among finance officers, that there is a major fraud going on with work comp claims. And some communities, I mean, it's, you know, they've had 25 or more of these incidents that have affected their employees and elected officials. And we have had that happen here. We've one employee and 2 members of council who I will be contacting. We've filed fraud filings at our end, might require the employees to also do that. It's something that I know that the police departments are starting to get active on, but I think at this point, the state is just probably overwhelmed. So council may hear about this more. There may be an effort of other municipalities, perhaps even through CML, that will come forward and ask for everyone's support to the state. But I just wanted to let you know that I will be emailing a few of you that it's happened to.
That's interesting because that happened up at the Med Center too.
Yeah.
Four people, including myself.
Ashley got hit today. Yeah.
I've been hearing about it not as workers' comp, but as unemployment.
No, unemployment, yeah. That's what Pam's talking about.
Well, she said workers' comp, so.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I meant unemployment.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, sorry.
Mallory's school in Montrose has been hammered by it, and so I put a fraud alert on her accounts with the fraud, with the credit monitoring companies, which is something all of us should be doing. If you don't already have a an account with at least one, if not all three of the credit monitoring bureaus to, at the very least, put a fraud alert on your account. And if you can, if it makes sense for you to put a freeze on your credit report, those are all really helpful things to do in this current climate. So, yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that we've been hit, because just about everybody has. Thanks for letting us know, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
I think the state has a pretty comprehensive webpage that has recommendations for things that we should do to if we've been found to be in a fraudulent hit, that it tells you what to do. So we might see if we can have staff share that. Anyway, that's sounds like we're pretty much done. Anybody have anything else? Anybody ready to be done?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay. Staff, have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, well, unless I hear an objection, giving you an opportunity to object, I will declare us adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Good night,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Welcome,
great
Angela.
evening, everybody.
Welcome, Angela. Congratulations.
Yep.
Made it through your first one.
And it was relatively.
Made it.
Smart one, too.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.